Hey, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Bird Brain 66 with your hosts, Andy Teague. I'm Brian Bretsch, and today we're excited because we're joined by Tony Schaefer of Monster Cards. Tony and I have known each other for probably 10 years. I've been going to different shows in the St. Louis area and purchasing things. He's also done a great job of, finding stuff for me that I asked. In fact, one of the cards that I'll showing today, because we're going to talk about 1962 Topps, is I'm 99.9% sure I bought my Bob Gibson card from Tony. So,
awesome.
Tony, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah. And like you say, I just want to prove that Cubs and Cards fans, we can bridge the gap here tonight, and people can see that we can all get along.
Yeah, well, as long as Andy doesn't try to stick a hot fork in his eye, I think we're going to be okay. So again, we're going to start talking about the 1962 set. But before we do that, Tony, I know that you just came back from the national show. So kind of give us a feel, everybody's still trying to figure out the whole COVID and getting together. Where is the state of baseball card collecting right now, in your opinion?
Well, with regard to COVID, people are coming off of about 20 months of being cooped up and in front of their computers, which has really helped the hobby. They've perhaps gotten some government stipends and used that to blow on cards, and various things have really taken off. During the past year and a half, we saw a boom with Jordans. Other rookie cards followed, and then went into vintage star cards. It went into a lot of different markets. Even soccer, Formula One are hot now. But the shows that first opened up again back a handful of months ago, like the Dallas show, have seen record attendance, and the same was true at the National in Rosemont this year. They sold out of VIP passes, sold out of their super VIP passes, and apparently sold 4 times the number of advance tickets that they did in 2019, the last national that they had, which was also in Chicago, Rosemont.
And what's it like to be there as somebody who you represent your company, Monster Cards, just to be a part of something that's that big, and what was the reception from people coming by and looking at your table?
Oh, it was great. People were spending money. Usually at a show, it's equal parts me trying to stay behind the table, but also walk around and look for deals from other dealers. This time, over the course of 6 days, 5 of them open to the public. I could hardly get out from behind my table. I was selling so much. People were just so eager to buy. And that was the sentiment for all the dealers there. It only takes a couple of days for the buzz, around the room, the dealers to all talk to each other. And it's just every dealer having a great show there.
And then last question before we get into the 62 set, what was, in your personal opinion, with what you said, you may not be able to give an answer because you didn't get up much, but what was did you have any 1 or 2 big buys for you that, you'll be able to move, at another like St. Louis show or somewhere else?
That is a good question. What I do is, and this show was no different, seek out a couple of different dealers and buy from them. Guys I know price their cards right, are going to give me a solid discount on their cards. So Tony Gordon, I'll just shout out a couple of them. Tony Gordon from the Chicago area and JD Heckathorn from Indiana. He probably does shows in St. Louis too. It's been a while since Tony's been down there, but JD is a national dealer. Really prices his stuff fairly, and instead of kind of swinging for a home run, I just go to where the solid deals are, and that's what happened this show.
Very cool. And a shout out again to you because of the years that I've been going to you. I always feel like, you're the number one guy I always go to at the St. Louis show. And I've always appreciated, you working with me via trades or or when my daughters were coming with me when they were much younger, and that they always remember you having like a Babe Ruth card at one time, and hey, Dad, why didn't you spend any money on that? And I just said, hey, he wasn't a Cardinal, and so that kind of got me off the hook as to why I wasn't going to spend a couple of thousand or whatever you had on the particular Babe Ruth card. But
and I should have kept it instead of selling it. So yeah, we're all in the same boat.
Exactly. So Andy, you kick us off and tell us a little bit about what you like best about the 62 set and what a little bit of your research is, and we can ask Tony a couple of questions about the 62 set.
Well, obviously the way the card looks, the wood. I like the wood grain look of the card, and Topps kind of went back to that again in '87. So I definitely like that look. And the other thing I really like as a Cardinal fan, what I like about it is you kind of get the blending of the old and the new, because you've got Musial in this set, you've got Gibson in the set because he's starting to come into prominence about that time. You have Shandy's, back with the Cardinals again, for a couple of years before he becomes the manager of the Cardinals, so a lot of great cards in there. Got Boyer. I always forget to mention Ken Boyer, and a pretty significant rookie card in there too. One of my favorite broadcasters, Tim McCarver, is actually in there as well. So that's another thing that I like about this set. And there's a couple other odds and ends, players that Javier's in that set as well. One of my dad's favorite players. So sentimental journey, on that particular point there. And the other, got the Musial's 21st season card in there. I really like that card. So that's my thoughts on it. Difficult set to collect because the high numbers obviously always run into that with the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Trying to track all those down, and for Cardinal fans, it's Bob Gibson is the tough one to get out of there. So that one,
He'd be in the short, yeah.
Yeah, and that's you see that?
Yep.
Great shot of Gibson on there.
I'm going to show you this one, and we'll talk about this in just a second because I want to see. I know Tony has probably seen this before, so it's not in the greatest of shape. You know who it is?
Venezuelan.
You got it.
Yeah. Cool.
That is probably my all-time top 3 stand cards. I love that card. So going back, talking about the 62 set, I know that there's 598 cards in the entire set. It was like at that time the largest set that they made. It came in 7 series. There's a bunch of high numbers in there. So Tony, as a seller, monster cards, tell us a little bit about 62, what you like about it, and when people come up to your table and they've got that notebook and they've got that list, who are some of the tough guys that people are always asking for to fill out an entire set?
Yeah, you guys are right on it with that Gibson, and another kind of a brother card to that in the high numbers is the Willie McCovey, number 544. Those are both high number short prints that are tough. And then, so depending on the geography of where people are when they listen to this, Andy started to go down the road with rookie card of a popular broadcaster,
right.
Bob Uecker, right, is one of the rookie parades. The high number series as a whole isn't all that difficult or pricey, but the stars in the high numbers are. So you have those rookie parades, 591 through 598. And on those, the notable rookies are Sam McDowell, Jim Bouton, and Bob Uecker. There, and then the other ones are kind of no-name players.
And thank God there's no Cardinals. I didn't mean to talk over you. That would have been a killer for Andy and I trying to get one of those rookie parades, but thankfully there's no Cardinals on those cards.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was going to look before this to see if they were, among the floating heads. So I wasn't positive about that, but no stars at least. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the funny things you mentioned. Uecker, he has, 3 of his cards are very valuable because he winds up in the high series, and those the particular sets, also the 64 and the 65. So, difficult cards to come by these days, when you're looking around. But yeah, it's crazy, and especially with the boom with the card business now. It's crazy. I think people sometimes are, I follow bids on people and see what they're doing, and it seems like a lot of times people overbid on stuff, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm like, are you kidding? Things you wouldn't necessarily think that people are interested in, but you're like, what in the world are you? What are you guys selling? But that stuff is selling, so.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of the product of these last 18 months. Once something starts to go up, it really skyrockets quickly. So, well, we'll see if those euchres come down a bit. But I did have a few people ask me for that card specifically at the National. Do you have a euchre rookie right now? So I don't know if there's an end in sight to that to that rise. I was gonna ask you guys how you felt about the design of the set. So Andy, you like the wood grain borders?
Yeah, I love that.
Okay, and Brian?
Oh, I do too. I mean, I love what I'll show the Johnny Keem card again because I got all mine in plastic sheets. I like how it rolls up, like paneling the wood grain. I think that's pretty cool. And I know it was still before the photography got really great, but all the great close-ups of the guys. But Tony, you'll like this discussion. Andy and I talk about this every show. I hope people don't get tired of it, but anyway, we always like the antiquated back in the day. Look at poor Minnie Minoso.
Yeah.
let's just take the cap. Let's not even try to make it red. Let's just take the logo off of the front of it and whatever team he had been playing for prior to that, because he played for just about every major league team, if I'm not mistaken. White Sox. And
what happens when you last that long, right? Make it all the way around the league.
Well, one of the other cooler things about all the older sets, and this one's no different, is cards like this, when you can get all these great players on one card. And again, as Brian always says, thank God on some of these, it didn't wind up like Pete. You're on there with the Cardinals on there with Pete Rose or something crazy. When you were collecting, because even when you were a kid, we were back in the flea market days. Spending anywhere from $1 to $5 on a card was like insane, when we were, 10, 11 years old.
Right.
But now, it's hundreds of dollars. So it's just actually crazy.
Yeah. So Tony, I got an interesting question to piggyback on what Andy just said. So it's kind of two. I'll ask them both at the same time here. So we always debate, does a card like this, do you need to have this card because there's a Cardinal on there to complete, the entire set? And I always question, so the other one that's really cool in here was the one that he just showed. But so that one had Warren Spahn on it, and the Cardinal was Kurt Simmons. Then he showed the Ken Boyer with former Wally Moon and now Roberto Bob Clemente. So are you surprised that those cards don't go for more money just because there's multiple, Hall of Famers, and in some case the whole card is full of like 3 or 4 Hall of Famers?
So I've told this story, I think, on my website a couple of times. One of the first cards that I ever bought was a 66 liter card that had, am I going to mess it up here? I think Mays Aaron Clemente. Might have to fact check that later. But, I took my whole $10 budget for the show that my mom told me not to spend in one place, and I ended up buying that one card. I've always liked them. They haven't always gotten the respect, I don't think, in the hobby, the multiplayer cards. I think they're neat. But I would say as a collector that you're probably going a little above and beyond to include those in your team set, which is fine. Some people are more thorough than others. But if somebody just said, hey, I have a team set here, I wouldn't expect that to be in it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think, Brian, to your point on that too, and Tony, it's when I look at those, because they basically plop faces down on that particular card. But if you go to maybe like a card like the Musial Mays card, where they're actually together in the photo, to me, that's an awesome card. Is you don't come across those very often, because usually, I'm not going to take anything away from Mantle and Boyer, but it could have been Mantle and Musial. Why not Mantle and Musial on that card? So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, Topps, they did find a way to get their big stars included, usually in another card, one way or another. Yeah.
And Tony, you have to answer this if you, again, just from a seller going to the show. So what I also found interesting about the 62 set is, when we haven't talked about it yet, is that 10 card run mini series of Babe Ruth cards that are in the 62 set. I mean, do they hold any higher value in your knowledge than the rest of the set, or is that highly coveted, or not so much?
Not as much, really. And they still can be found for just a few bucks a piece. Yeah, I think the book price last I knew was $20 a piece. And they're part of the Green Tint series, which we didn't talk about yet, but that second series of cards. So those can also appear in Green Tint, but they're not super high in value. But I would say they have reasonable popularity, but not a ton. Like I might expect.
And are the green tints highly coveted? That's one thing that Andy and I have talked about prior to talking about the 62 set. Is I know that I do not have any. I focus more on just picking up a couple of the Venezuelan cards, because I just think the story behind it is much cooler. But I mean, is there a market for the green tint cards?
And for the longest time, there really hasn't been. There are some people that seek them out maybe to make a master set, but for a long time, they've really held about the same value as the regular cards.
Very cool. So we talked about the short print series. Andy, I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, because I didn't write it down, and shame on me for not doing it. I know that in addition to Gibson, there are three other short prints in the series that are Cardinals, and
Shane Dees and Flood.
Kurt Flood is $5.90. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I think the hardest one for me to grab out of there, I think it was catcher Gene Oliver. I don't remember.
That was actually a difficult card as well.
And I can't remember if he was the short print or not. But overall, I'm amazed that there's 37 Cardinals in the set for Andy and I, Tony. But again, that's because we're including the NL leaders and some of the other cool stuff in there. But no, it's I thoroughly enjoy
Blood card.
Blood. And he's the last of the high numbers before they start the rookie parade, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So what out of I know you said it was regional, Tony, and again with the McCovey and the Gibson. Any other cards in that set that are coveted by folks?
Yeah. So one other rookie that came out of there is Gaylord Perry. And then a bit of baseball history, of course. You guys talked about number one cards before. So we're coming off of the 61 season. Who better to lead off this set than Roger Maris, right? Just hit 61 home runs and ends up as the number one card. So big deal in baseball for sure.
And a Cardinal eventually.
Yeah. Just a few years. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So I'm trying to think on the 62 set if there's anything else. Like there are 8 rookies. Thankfully, we've talked about it. They're not on the parade cards with the multiple players, but there's like Ray Washburn, who had a great career. Julio Gote. I'm just looking off to the side here, guys, at my entire set.
He went to the Pirates, I think, and pretty quick after that season, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. John Anderson and Ed Bauta, and then I think they're missing one other guy that's down underneath that set. But no, I like it. Also, as a Cubs fan, I guess one of the high numbers that's tough in the short print, not the short print, but in the high series, isn't it? Is it the Cubs, or is it the White Sox, or is it the Cubs? I think it's the Cubs team card that's in there.
There are team cards in there, a few that don't quite get the respect or the value that some of the team cards do in other high number series. For instance, the 67 with the Red Sox, the 66 with the Twins and Tigers. But among the highs in 62, you have the Twins, the Cubs, and the Indians. I'm pretty sure the Indians. And they all have a decent book value. I think they're all around $50, but they don't really sell for crazy prices like in some of those other high number series for some reason. Yeah.
One thing we didn't talk about was the cool backs on these cards, because they all have a cartoon and talk about the player on the back of these cards. So that's worth mentioning as well.
Mm-hmm.
The Topps does a really good job with that on this particular set. I really like the little stories and the little cartoons they have on there.
Okay, this is just me editorializing. So this is Lindy McDaniel and Larry Jackson. I've often wondered their pictures. Why were they called the Redbird Rippers? I would think that you would give that to like Flood and maybe somebody else who was smashing home runs, not
How about Musial?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that is quite the confusing title for that card.
But it's definitely an interesting one. So Tony, you know that Andy and I collect only Cardinal cards, and that are we kind of a rare breed, or are there more people doing what we're doing, or when you go to shows, are you still getting people who just want to complete the entire sets?
Oh, definitely people want to complete team sets. Yeah, maybe even more so now than before, with some of the rookies and the big stars, your Mantles and whatnot, really appreciating and value. People want to just kind of stick tight with their team set and the players that they really remember. So one more guy, I can't believe we haven't mentioned him yet. Now, you're both Cardinal fans.
Lou Brock.
Lou Brock, yeah. So you definitely both have a Lou Brock rookie, I'm guessing, but he's not part of your Cardinal team set.
Nope.
And Andy, you don't have one. Oh, wow.
I do not, no.
And Brian, you don't either.
It's one of those sacred things, Tony. Sorry. I mean, I've wanted to pull the trigger, and then I'm just like, you know what? It breaks my rule when I decided, many years ago, that if I'm going to get back into collecting, I can't collect everything. So it's only Cardinals. But what's great about my collection is to be able to look at Ernie Broglio, and then the following year, Lou Brock.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Andy, you have to tell Tony the story, if he hasn't heard it before, about what Gibson said after they traded Broglio for Brock. You've told that story a couple of times.
Yeah, there was some he really liked Ernie. He said, and they didn't know about this kid Brock that they had brought in, and didn't think he was going to like him at all. Then they wind up playing together for the next 12 years or whatever it is, until Gibson retires. So it's a pretty cool little story. I mean, just Bob Gibson on it. Not very talkative about things, but he did bring that up. But
well, good thing he stuck to the pitcher's mound and not the front office, I guess.
Yeah,
Exactly. So you told me about this the other day, so just wanted you to highlight this one more time. So is the older stuff, like what we're talking about today, 1962 Topps, is that what everybody's going for? Or are they really into more of the newer stuff, like the Topps Living and the Topps Demand and the Now and all that sort of stuff? What currently is hotter, the new stuff or the old stuff?
Hotter would be the new stuff. Yeah. Because the people who are coming into the hobby, they're a younger breed. They think that 80s cards are vintage, and I don't know if I can argue with them. They're 40 years old now. But when I say I'm a vintage card dealer, then I have to further explain what I mean by it. But these new cards are worth so much too. They're, whether it's manufactured scarcity, they're 1-of-1s, 1-of-5s, patches, autographs. To me, it's a whole nother world.
And is that, I mean, I know that you say vintage. Are you just always going to stick to your guns and stay vintage, or do you think you'll ever?
I might change eventually, but it's second nature to say vintage and just have everybody know what I mean. Now, once there's a tipping point and people don't know what I mean, I'm gonna have to specify, I guess.
Well, very good. Andy, anything else that you want to bring up about the set as we get ready to wrap up? And we want to make sure we give Tony a good chance to plug Monster Cards again.
Just another fantastic set by Topps. They did a really good job. Really up until recently with changing the style of their cards, and I think we mentioned that before. In the past, I guess 4 or 5 years, the cards have looked very similar that are coming out from Topps. Like they don't have any cool borders anymore, or they don't really have any character to them. We still get them, but it's just these cards really have character. And look at different, and they're very distinct. You can look at every card from 51, because they're very small, obviously, on up to probably, I don't know, the late
75.
They're all very distinct, but now they don't really stand out anymore.
Yeah, they're more interested.
That's probably my biggest thing. This set definitely stands out.
Definitely, yeah, and what we talked about earlier, it seems like they do have style in the heritage because they're bringing back these retro looks with the current players. But that's
and there's no Wainwright in here, by the way. I just had to mention that, Brian.
That's one of our beefs, Tony. There's a lot of team sets from about 2007 on.
17 on up that they don't put Wainwright into the team set.
Oh, it's crazy.
I find it very odd.
So, do you find out why that is?
No, we have not. We haven't tracked that down yet.
Yeah, and
hopefully somebody tells us at some point why that is.
Yeah, I've tweeted at Topps a couple of times to.
And very recently, the Gypsy Queen set that just came out, he's not in there. And then not the high number, but the Heritage set last year, he's not in there either. Very odd. Then you look at the players that are in there, and you're like, Wainwright make it into the set.
Sure.
Yeah,
he really stands out because that'd be like not having Molina in a set.
Yeah, let's put in Lane Thomas or Austin Dean, but we're not going to put in Adam Wainwright. So,
yeah.
Alrighty. Well, I'll get ready to wrap us up. But Tony, before I do that, tell us a little bit more about how folks, because you're an active seller on eBay, you go to the shows. How can people find out more about Monster Cards?
Yeah, appreciate it, Brian. So eBay, my ID is I'm-a-monster, which is probably easier to type than it is to say. Facebook, Monster Cards, Twitter, Monster Cards, and Instagram, monster.cards.
Yep. I follow most of those. I'm not an Instagram guy yet, but I think that's probably the next evolution for Andy and I to be a part of Instagram. But anyway,
just kind of recently, I've made my way on there, and it's a good community too for cards. It's fun.
Yeah, well, good. Thank you for that tip. So with that, I'll get ready to close. I appreciate everybody joining us. And first and foremost, thank you, Tony, for joining us. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you very much. Definitely want to have you come back because you got a lot of knowledge. And
yeah, we'll just next time make you maybe turn your cap around backward or something like that. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, we could talk. We have a episode talk about Cardinals and Cubs,
Yes.
People that made that transition.
Right.
So you have like a 12-step program for people to go through. Yeah.
Yes.
Tell you what, if the Cubs don't improve.
One of the more recent ones that caused me a great meltdown was Jim Edmonds.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
I almost had to. I thought I was gonna have to stop watching baseball when that happened because he was one of my all-time favorites, and I'm like, how does this happen?
Yeah, definitely like Jimmy is, man. He made a good contribution. Yeah.
The Brewers and the Reds. I mean, come on. Yeah, does that happen?
Yep. All righty. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Again, thanks, Tony. He's Andy Teague. I'm Brian Bretsch. You can find us at birdbrain66 on Twitter, YouTube, and on Facebook. Thanks for joining.